Welcome back everyone to my second This Is Us video. This time about Season 4's episode, So Long Marianne, the 9th episode of the season. I wasn't intending to do a second video on this series so soon, but after watching the fall finale, I was inspired to do so. It gives me a second opportunity to praise the talents of Mandy Moore, as well as to right a wrong from my last video. I mistakenly referred to the actor who plays Randall as Sterling K. Shepard, when in fact it's Sterling K. Brown. Sterling Shepard is actually a football player on the New York Giants who's enjoying a pretty brutal season. Not so with Sterling K. Brown, who could very well earn another Emmy. My friend Stacy was the one who pointed out the mistake, the one who wanted me to do videos on this series in the first place. She waited years for me to do so, only for me to screw up one of the actors' names. I hope that he and she can forgive me. As an amusing side note, Sterling K. Brown showed up in Frozen 2, a fact I didn't quite know until after I checked out the credits from IMDb. When I was watching the movie, with Julia by the way, I did not recognize his voice at all. My goal for next year is to produce more content, and This Is Us factors into my plans, though the ultimate future with Corman Productions isn't likely to be with YouTube. When I first started making videos, Stacy just suggested that I try to get my videos monetized. At the time, it was going to be quite difficult to ever pull off. But then YouTube changed the rules in such a way that it became an out-and-out fantasy to ever think I was going to be able to do this. The final nail in the coffin in that particular idea is upcoming thanks to the law that will affect a lot of YouTube channels starting next year, known as COPPA. If you don't know what COPPA is, there are plenty of YouTube videos on the topic, but the long and short of it is that it's a law that is supposed to protect children from being targeted from ads. Content creators are supposed to declare if a video or channel is meant for children, and if they do so, there will be a 90% drop in revenue, which doesn't actually concern me too much because I'm making $0 currently on my channel. My channel isn't exactly for children, though I do have a 6-year-old, soon-to-be 7-year-old, who occasionally watches my videos. She is also one of my most frequent co-stars. In all reality, I would probably be considered to have a mixed audience, which is not protected from the law. So, if my videos were monetized, this would be a problem for me. But, since that's never going to happen, I should be okay to continue on as I have been, with little to no notice paid to me. I don't do what I do for the money. I do it for the love of the game. Hopefully, in the process, I occasionally entertain a few people. Entertain, as well as to spread awareness on issues that I think need discussing, that aren't being. Ideally speaking, the future of Corman Productions is a mixture of being a business that pays me money, as well as continuing to produce the content that I always have, though with better production value. For now, my home will remain on YouTube, but we'll see about the future. As far as how I'm going to tackle This Is Us as a series in my videos, I think I'm going to do it similar to how I did it in my last video, by talking about one plot line within the episode I'm talking about, rather than the entire episode, which as I said usually contains more than one thread. Sometimes they connect, sometimes they don't. Which brings us to the episode that I intended to talk to you about in the first place. This episode, which sees everybody gathering for Thanksgiving, contains multiple threads, per usual. There's Toby and Kate, whom I have no interest in talking about. But let's just say that their relationship looks decidedly less than healthy. There's a thread about Tess, Randall's daughter, who I actually discussed in my last video, and Kevin, which happens to be one of my favorite threads in the episode. This thread even has a happy ending to it, which most of the stories in this don't really. Randall and Beth's adopted daughter, Deja, is having her a biological mother come for Thanksgiving, which is interesting. It didn't go in the direction that I was worried it would, but I also talked about the Randall family quite a bit in the last video, and I feel like I should spread the love. Deja is a character that I probably should talk about in future videos. There's Jack's brother, Nicky, who the family thought died in Vietnam, thanks to Jack himself. Kevin brought him to the family Thanksgiving, and his thread actually gives the episode its title. It's one of my favorite threads in this episode, but I think I'd like to do another video explaining Nicky's arc in this series at a later date. Suffice it to say, this episode pays off all the time we've been spending with his character this season. The thread I will mostly be talking about, as I've already hinted, is the one that includes Rebecca, the mother of the big three. Now, Mandy Moore was born in 1984, making her 3 years younger than me at 35. She's had to play her character through every timeline in the show, though I'm unclear if she's still alive in Toby and Kate's adult son timeline, who we've now seen a few times, including in this episode. His name is also Jack, by the way. I don't think I mentioned that. Obviously named after the Big Three's father. The past scenes, when the Big Three were children, is not much of a stretch for her talents. But in the current timeline, she is playing an older Rebecca. According to Vanity Fair, she's about 68 in the current timeline. The makeup doesn't exactly suggest that she's a woman nearing her 70s. The makeup has never been that convincing to me, but the acting from Mandy Moore very much suggests a significantly older version of the character. She kicks 20 kinds of butt in this series, and has given me a greater appreciation for her acting talents. She's about to undergo a dementia or Alzheimer's storyline that I can't say I'm looking forward to watching too much, but I have no doubt that Mandy Moore will totally kill it. In the previous episode, Randall and Rebecca had a fight to end the episode. He's become convinced that something is wrong with her mentally. I should note that some of the reasons for his concern are things that I do on the regular, without any such problem. I'm just the absent-minded professor. He tries to suggest that she should go see a doctor, but she isn't having it, and the fight gets ugly. I felt this was very true to life for depicting adult children with their aging parents. As we begin this episode, prior to everyone arriving for Thanksgiving, Randall is upset with how things went down. He wants to make up for the previous night, but doesn't really know how to go about it. Beth, who sees him sneaking glances at his mother, who's helping them prepare for the upcoming meal, suggests he just go talk to her, thinking that she probably wants to make up for things just as much as he does. Randall does so, trying to be casual. He's not successful. She's not really engaging. Miguel, Rebecca's current husband, former best friend of Jack, no, that's not as bad as it sounds, makes an excuse to leave so the pair can actually talk. I'm curious how much Miguel actually knows about what went down. He clearly knows something, but I'm not sure he's totally clued in on the specifics of the argument. Anyway, Randall tries to apologize. Rebecca says that she would just like to move on and forget the conversation ever happened. Randall enthusiastically agrees, and then attempts to bring it up again. A better strategy would probably be to let the matter drop, for the sake of having a decent Thanksgiving, and then getting into it at a later date. But I honestly don't think Randall's character is capable of that. Nor really would I be, honestly. It would just continue bugging me and eating at me. She turns on a burner and then walks away. Randall turns it off. She notices this and gets defensive, saying that she was just going to make some tea. It's kind of hard not to be defensive when you have someone watching you and assuming every move you make is evidence of some kind of problem. She finally has enough and says she needs some space. She says she's going to go for a walk or go see a movie or something. Later, when Randall is asked where she is, he suggests that she went to go see the new Robert De Niro film, which would have to be The Irishman, the Martin Scorsese film he elected to make instead of The Joker. I checked to see if the movie is still in theaters, and it is. Also, it's playing in Philadelphia theaters, where the characters are currently located. She could also be going to see The Joker, which is also still in theaters, but that could hardly be classed as a Robert De Niro film, as he's very much a supporting character in that film. This is sort of irrelevant, as Randall is basically making this up and has no idea where his mother is. He doesn't want the others to worry. Plus, he's honoring his mother's request to keep things between the two of them. He looks like a deer in headlights in a lot of scenes throughout the episode. When Kevin later asks a similar question about his mother's whereabouts, Beth, who clearly knows what's up, kind of makes a dismissive gesture and disappears into her work. The next time we see Rebecca, she's walking in the park looking confused. She thinks she sees a young William, Randall's biological father, and chases after him to talk, but then realizes it's not William at all. She covers herself as much as she can to make herself not look crazy, and gets pointed in the general direction of a grocery store. She goes to the store and seems to forget why she's there in the first place. I did note that the symptoms of whatever her issue is seem to spike significantly, which is important later. She buys some flowers and gets into a conversation with a cashier, which points her in the direction of her next stop on Rebecca's adventure, a Chinese restaurant. I gotta point out that I was a little confused by everyone going to get food from somewhere else when they are about to have Thanksgiving dinner. There's Tess and Kevin getting something from drive-thru in a pretty funny and touching moment, and Rebecca. But Rebecca is actually sort of explained, which we'll get to later in the episode. As she leaves the store, we see she's left her phone behind, and that Randall is calling her. When the full context of Rebecca's day comes into view, the fact that Randall is calling her becomes interesting. As I said, we will get to that. She goes to the Chinese restaurant, has her meal, and then realizes that she doesn't have a clue where her phone is. She starts to freak out in a scene that I'm glad they cut away from when they did, because as it stands, it was pretty hard to watch. I repeat, Mandy Moore is amazing. Can't say it enough. We next see her riding with the cops, who are escorting her to her destination, which turns out to be a cabin that looks suspiciously like the one the family used to go to that we saw in season 1. At this point, I'm thinking she's made a terrible choice, and my heart was hurting for her. I thought she was going to be delivered to an empty house while the rest of the family was at Randall's, with no way to call them. But then, Kevin opens the door. Wait, what? No, Kevin isn't here, he's at Randall's house. Good God! Is Rebecca hallucinating? I half expected them to reveal that she's in an empty house talking to herself, and that's where we were going to get left with her for the year, until next year when the show came back. But then we notice a banner saying, Happy 40th Birthday. All of Rebecca's scenes away from the house were from 9 months in the future. I gotta say, I wish they played this plotline a little bit more straight. I get it, really I do. this is what the show does. This Is Us loves to pull the narrative rug out from underneath us. But Rebecca's storyline is sufficiently compelling without resorting to this level of narrative trickery. Backing up a little bit, earlier, not that much earlier, but earlier, Randall has a conversation with Kevin back at the house after he gets back from his thread with Tess. He's asked a question about what's next for him. Kevin says that all the time he spent with Nikki and another character, Cassidy, played by House alum Jennifer Morrison, made him realize that he enjoys taking care of people and he wants a family. His goal is to have a wife and kid by his 40th birthday, which, as Randall points out and makes fun of him a little bit, is 9 months away. Well, in the flash forward, we hear that Kevin does indeed have a fiancée and a baby on the way. Mission successful, I guess. But isn't that a little fast? I'm not saying it's impossible, but that's a very rushed timeline. Even if it's somebody we already know, like Cassidy, that character is currently going through a divorce. So in 9 months, she will be divorced, engaged to Kevin, and having a baby on the way? That seems ill-advised, to say the least. Not that I'm necessarily one to talk. Even if this isn't Cassidy, this is still a rushed timeline. And sorry, Kevin, but it seems like your romance is doomed. But hey, you'll get that kid out of the deal at least. Also seemingly doomed is Kate and Toby. Toby is nowhere to be seen, and Kate is signing her name as Pearson. None of this means that they are splitsville exactly, but the episode itself seems to suggest that the relationship is going downhill. One of the reasons I didn't really want to talk about them. Miguel is still there, which is a good sign. He's looking very worried about Rebecca and the situation. He's not in the future timeline that we've seen, and there's been no explanation as to why so far, though there's certainly been theories. I mean, by this point, the characters should know about Rebecca's mental decline, so I'm kind of wondering why they were letting her wander around without some kind of escort. Maybe that'll be explained later on. Maybe we'll get a better explanation for why this is the case, so I'm going to hold off on criticizing them, but it's an issue that I'd like to see addressed. Also not present is Randall, because Kevin and him are not on speaking terms. No reason is given, which is one of the reasons that the creators did this whole narrative trickery thing in the first place, to tease out what's going to happen in the back end of the season. Many have speculated that this was something to do with Randall hiding Rebecca's illness from the family, though I'm curious if the reason is really going to be that obvious. In the further future timeline of the show, I'm pretty sure we've seen Kevin and Randall interact, so I'm not that worried about it. I must say, by the way, that this show gets really complicated to talk about with all these timelines everywhere. Anywho, in the present-day timeline, much to Randall's relief, who's been calling Rebecca, quietly panicking the entire show, Rebecca shows up at the house. She tells him his phone died and that she went and saw a movie. Randall, through tears in his eyes, again apologizes. This time he has no agenda, no desire to push her to get checked out. He's just sorry, and suggests that he was overreacting. He's just relieved to see his mother, and he doesn't want to fight anymore. She tells him that halfway through the trailer of Cats, she forgot what movie she was going to see. That trailer, by the way, is simply terrifying. Seriously, go watch the thing and tell me you're not going to have nightmares. But I digress. She realizes that he was right. She does have a problem, and she should go see a doctor. Randall is holding back tears, simply says okay, and holds her hand. She then goes back to interacting with her family, like nothing is going on, smiling and laughing, revealing that Rebecca is a pretty good actor as well, a skill she probably learned from the aftermath of Jack's death. Boy, is this going to be brutal going forward. This was easily the best episode of the season, despite my issues and misgivings with it. And that's really all I got for this episode. If you like this video, please subscribe, like, and share. I know my future isn't exactly on YouTube, but I still am trying to get people to actually watch my videos. Anyway, this is Dave from Corman Productions, wishing you all a happy Thanksgiving.